little rundown about, hey, this might bring some stuff up. And I invite you to raise your hand or slow down or type in the chat box anything that's coming up for you. You can private message me. I'm sure that the people that you could private message, if like maybe Scott or Paul, can I just rope you guys in? Okay, just in case something comes up. But if you do want to private message me, we can slow down and I'll address it for the group, because it's generally this, that if you're working through something, that other people are working through very similar things. So you don't have to do this alone. We're all here together right now, working through our codependency, working through our self-abandonment, and really living in our full fuck yes and our truths. Am I frozen?
Yeah. On and off.
Come back.
Okay, this should be better. Let's run it through my phone. I would like to just say that I'm grateful for Verizon right now. Okay, so I didn't say much after that, but if you are triggered, raise your hand, write in the chat box. Like, that's first thing out of the gate. I would really like you to feel supported here. That's really important. And if anything comes up after the class, you can message me, Facebook or email, or whatever way is easiest for you. So today our topic is going to be on repatterning the self-abandonment wound, or the abandonment wound, and really just learning how to honor oneself and deep self-care and deep love, right? And that's why you're here. We have someone new. Hi. I'm glad I haven't gotten anywhere first. I'd like you all.
Noelani.
I know, Alani.
I'm gonna change the name so it's proper.
Thank you. So I invite you all to close your eyes for a moment and take a nice deep breath. Drop your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Drop your shoulders from your ears. Let your jaw hang down where you can feel it, just the stretch of the relaxation from your jaw, letting it drop down, your head drop down to your chest, letting your shoulders drop, your hands drop, giving yourself a stretch in your fingertips, in your stomach, giving yourself a wiggle or a settle. Just allowing yourself to settle in. And as you take the next nice deep breath in, just allowing that wave of oxygen to nourish your whole being, from the top of your head down to the very tips of your feet. And as you exhale, releasing any and all stress, any and all thoughts, just allowing yourself to be here right now, committed to yourself, committed to your presence. You keep taking nice deep breaths in, into this space for you. And when you're ready, give yourself a shake. Come back to the room, open your eyes. So the essence of what we're talking about today is more of a learned behavior. So for me, my understanding of the codependent patterning is a socialization technique that we've all been taught around the entire world. It's a global, systemic idea of being tethered to another person, Now, I do believe that all humans are tribal creatures, though we were taught to maybe over rely on each person, that it's instead of being taught to my new coping skills or healthy coping skills to meet my own needs or self source my own needs, my emotional needs, some of my physical needs, that we're taught to project it onto people, right? I know that I'm not speaking to you in a way that's like, you're not like, wow, this is really wild news, because I know that we all feel it, right? Especially the male female dynamic. This has been playing out for centuries, you know, how we've been trained to women are the cookers, the family members, and we're dissecting this, you know, where we care for family. And then the men are the providers. They're the, you know, they bring the things, they're the heroes of the situation. And as this has shifted over the really recently, actually, over the last few, I don't know, 50 years, really, 50, 60 years, this has actually been shifting. You know, we saw lots of power dynamics and relational dynamics shift in the 60s. You know, they were starting to shift in the 20s. In the 60s, they shifted a lot. In the 80s, women were working a lot. Like the balance between men and women working, taking them out of the family home really shifted the way that we all relate to our relationships, ourselves, our children, our parents, right? Is this an experience that you've had? Does this make sense to you? Yeah. Before it was easy, like relationships were easy, right? You knew your role. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And that's not how it works anymore. Also, it wasn't the most healthy situation in the world, was it either? So, what I really wanted to start off with is that sometimes I'm just going to slow down because I get really excited. Is that I truly believe that we're taught to be codependent, aka we're taught to self-abandon. We're taught to do this philanthropist kind of thing, like, oh, if I just give more of myself, then they'll love me, or their needs are higher than my needs. And as beautiful as that sounds, it's particularly martyristic. I'm going to make up a whole bunch of words too. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's particularly martyristic. And so then what that leaves is that we're depleted. We don't have enough. We go up in our full fuck yes and our full 100% with another person. And that leaves them, of course, they once we start giving in that way, they expect that because we're training them to behave with us, right? Like, has anyone raised a dog before? Have you ever had a pet? If you had a pet, raise your hand. It's really in the same way, is that we train our animals to behave in ways with us. So if I let the cat yell at me and then like go open the door, because it's yelling at me, it's going to learn, it's teaching me how to behave with it, and I'm teaching it that that's what I'll do for it. So if it screams at 4 a.m. and I do things for it, it's going to continue to scream at 4 a.m. Or I could feed it before I go to bed and solve this problem. Does this make sense? So this is behavioral therapy. CBT is a really, it's the way that the brain works is the way that we create neural pathways. So as we've been developing codependent patterning or self-abandoning patterning for most of our lives, speaking for myself, that we start to realize that, oh, this is where I can retrain the pattern, right? This is also the places of where anxious and avoidant and fearful avoidant attachment styles start to become really alive, right? And we see this as we have built through our relationships in childhood. So, does everyone want to get into this? Is this okay? I'm going to start moving into some childhood stuff. All right, I'm just going to keep checking in because I don't want to freak you all out. But I am going to check in because I care about where you are. Okay, good. So fearful. Okay. The anxious attachers have been really emotionally abandoned, right? They sought out affection. They have wanted these things and been batted away. Or what was the thing? I can't remember the name of it, but it was oh, they're gonna self-soothe. Let them cry and they'll self-soothe, which is a particularly traumatic tool that, I mean, theoretically, yes, they were self-soothing, but now they've created all these like neurological like freakouts. I'll never get my needs met. So that's one of the things that was created to help children understand self-soothing. I don't know if that's exactly what was healthy for most children, but it created some callousing, right? So there's the attachment styles are avoidant, anxious, and then the third, disorganized or fearful attachment. So the avoidants have a tendency to be really frightened by intimacy, by connection, and they don't know what to do about it. There's a plethora of ways that they develop this as children, right? The ways of being like overly like having someone over them all the time, being like, you can't do this, like having someone really controlling. So then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't be, if you feel free. So when they get into the relationships, they're really like, oh shit, and they start backing away. Now the avoidance or the anxious folks, again, we were just talked about them, is like, oh my God, I want affection, but my person isn't there for me. So they reach in. So the tendency for anxious and avoidant patterning, for our own sacred mirror work to really be alive, the sacred mirror work is to really be to find someone to trigger you so that you can heal your work. It's for anxious and avoidance to work with each other to find ways to balance that, because we're always looking as humans for homeostasis. And then we have the third, which is the fearful avoidant. And the fearful avoidant has a combination of both of those things. So they're both wanting their caregiver, and their caregiver's probably potentially been abusive. So I want this and you're dangerous. So it creates this pattern of like a tango dance that's really kind of difficult for people's partners or for them to even understand how to move with them. And so this is where my work comes in. This is where my personal work and the work that I share out in the world is really to help people live in their fuck yes and being really compassionate and open and understanding of another person, right? Are you all following? Yeah. How's this for everyone? Take a nice deep breath in. If it brought anything up, I invite you to share it out right now. So just to share a little part of my story as well around this part is, my mother was a really severely abused child. And as she raised me, there were things that she was under-resourced. As I look back, most of the time, she was under-resourced as a single parent most of the time. She was emotionally and physically abusive. Not that she wanted her love to look like that, I don't think. Like, I don't think that was her intention, but that's just how it came out. There was lots of backhands. There was lots of really vicious languaging that she shared with me. One of the things that I've been really like sitting with the last couple months is stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Did anyone else get that one? Ooh, I hate that one. My father, now he was particularly avoidant. Like, he lost his father when he was 6 years old and never really had that loving father figure My grandmother was the sweetest, terribly codependent woman. She did the whole 50s style, like, fawny thing. And I've never heard her get angry ever. So he sort of was just not emotionally there. He was super disconnected. So now I have been looking at this fearful avoidant patterning where I'm like, I really love attention and connection, come here. And oh my God, I'm hitting my intimacy threshold, like right now, because of what I want. And I push away. And I'll even create systems of, I'll just create some chaos to live in the pattern of push-pull. And it's really confusing for other people, right? Luckily, now that I'm aware of it, like I can feel it in my body. And that's what I really want to bring for you all, is to be able to feel it in your body so you can say to people in your life, okay, I can own that I want to create some shit right now. I want to create chaos. I want to stir the pot. And I'm going to tell you, because I'm being really, really honest. And this, if we're in a relationship together, whether it's friendship or your boss or your colleague or your lovership, like it doesn't really matter. Like, hey, I want to create some shit right now. What I need is to just slow down, to get back into my safety, but I need you to check in while I'm taking space. And how loving and connective that place can be for everyone involved, right? Does this make sense? All right. I do want to share a couple pieces about how we abandon ourselves. And is there anyone here that follows the holistic psychologist? Yeah. Well, I love her. I love Nicole LaPera. She's fabulous. I do want to share my screen about a couple things that I wanted to bring up. How we betray and abandon ourselves. And it's just like a super perfect, easy thing to see. All right, here we go. Can you see just this piece? Or do you see my whole screen?
It's perfect.
All
We
right.
see the piece and you to the side talking. It's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So we betray ourselves when we ignore our own needs or limits in order to be chosen by another person. Ooh, who relates to that one? To be chosen by another person. I'll do this for your love. Oh, that is literally the essence of codependency. We deny our own realities. So basically, we gaslight ourselves to be loved. So, oh, I can't feel this because it's irrational, or it's not spiritual to be angry or sad, or I'm having this experience and ... Like, I think you all understand that one. Look for an expert or someone outside of ourselves to define what we believe. Oh, I need a therapist, or I need someone else to really help me to like diagnose me. Like that's a really good place. Like, oh, I'm not whole, so I need to be diagnosed. Perform or achieve to gain approval. Who does that one? Does anyone else do that one? I'll put makeup on. I'll dress in the way that gets me the, ooh, I'll overdo this too. Yeah. I say yes when I mean no. I don't hold my boundaries out of fear, guilt, and shame. I compare or be highly critical of past experiences and behavior. And I'll live there. Has anyone else lived in regret? Oh, good. I thought it was just me there for a second. So I just want to make it clear that I don't believe that we can't self-source all of our needs. Because I know that that's also a very destructive thing to think, like, oh, I'm all on my own, I can do all the things. That's also a trauma response, or can be a trauma response. Doing everything on your own, not letting people help you, is also a trauma response. Can be. Now, when I say self-sourcing, or when I say that we abandon ourselves and we don't have to do that, is what I mean is that there's places to find balance, which is Scott's word, right? Balance for the year. And when we can find balance in that place of meeting our own needs first, and then we can come from a place of being whole or full or fuller to show up and say, hey, Anna Prabha, I have done all of these things to source myself, and what I need now is I really need a head pat or a touch or a hug or just someone to listen to the crazy shit in my brain. Just to hear me, to acknowledge, to empathize. Make sense? So those are just a couple of ways. I'm going to open it up to the room for a little vulnerability. Is how do you abandon yourself? Just one. Yeah.
Well, I think I can abandon myself by totally taking care of all my needs and feeling actually best when I am on my own, in fact, where I feel safest and in control, and not really reaching out, and just create my space exactly as I want it. Aside from that, I love my kids being with me, but as far as to be a partner, I really have to deal with my nervous system just being on such hyper alert. Since I grew up in a really traumatic, I have this traumatic cellular DNA still, even with all the awareness I have around it. I still have, don't feel really safe or comfortable or can really relax with a partner. Even though I've been married and lived with them continuously, it's my really safety space is just my totally having my own space.
I feel that. Does anyone else relate to that one? Yeah. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share. If yeah, okay, yeah. How I self-abandon, I think I can relate to several of the ideas that you shared on that sheet. And one of the ways I self-abandon is almost like I can move out of my physical body in a stressful situation or something where I fear losing place with someone. So it's almost like I will sort of separate myself from my true desires and answer from that place. But it's kind of, I feel like at this point in my life, I'm very grateful because there's more of a choice point and it's getting stronger. So I think that there's a sense of, wait a sec, let me pull back and be grounded and answer from that place. But I still do it. I mean, on occasion. And it's uncomfortable. And then it's, sort of the repercussions of that or the cleaning up of that afterwards can be quite challenging, I feel like, because I always want to come from a place of true, deep integrity, which can help me separate from the world a bit, to be quite honest. But also when I show up, I think I feel embarrassed that, oh, I did this thing again, where I didn't stay in my body and own my true need, or maybe I didn't know it in that moment because I got a little nervous that I was going to lose place on. I think that's one of the ways that also I tend to be quite adventurous too. So there's like this real weird play in there of like, how do all parts of Jessica show up in one moment and make a really quality decision? Like it doesn't always happen, and there's grace there for me, but thanks for listening.
I don't know if anyone else relates to that, but I can totally disassociate. Like for real though. Like, whew, okay. Lorna, you were wanted to share. Thank you.
Yes,
Jessica.
I do. Yeah, I'm real good at leaving my body. Let's see. For me, there's a real tangle. If I'm sexually attracted to a man, I'm completely lost. I become an addicted person. I can practically think of nothing else. I mean, I'm a person who has achieved a great deal in the world in terms of career success, but I'm just completely a goner when there's a sexual attraction. So the men that I've had long-term relationships with have been men I haven't been sexually attracted to. And I understand this whole thing because I was incested by my father, and God knows what happened in past lives, which I'm exploring as well. But that's why, I mean, I feel despair for other reasons around COVID and all that. But I'm pretty despairing about, I'm anxious avoidant, and I'm 75, and blah, blah, blah doesn't work. I'm sure it's in my body. And I'm pretty discouraged about breaking through. I've tried really hard. I have not found the right somatic therapist. I talked them out of it, and they let themselves be talked out of it. So it's weird.
I so relate to that. Lorna, thank you for sharing that. That's so honest and vulnerable. And you know, when I feel like when we're the most like in it and we're the most discouraged is when the breakthroughs do happen and we stick to it. And maybe it's not just one person that you need. Maybe it's a whole community. I think you got it right here.
I isolate, so that, you know, whole community is tricky for me, but I'll stay tuned. Also, I just wanted to mention, you know, when I was born in 45, the Dr. Spock, fuck Dr. Spock, because in his infant and child care book, leave the kid crying in the crib. And I know that that's had a huge effect. I mean, my parents there were a lot of difficulties in their parenting, but they were doing their best by trying to follow his advice. And it's so counterintuitive. And he changed it in later editions. And I just say, fuck him. Yeah, it affected a whole generation. Of kids crying in the crib.
Yeah.
And I have entrapment issues and abandonment issues and nobody listens to me issues. And so anyway.
Oh, you don't listen, you don't hear? I've got that one too.
No, I feel not listened to.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you have to. Oh, great.
You don't listen, you don't hear? Yeah, I've got that one.
Someone focused on me completely, I go ballistic when I'm speaking, you know? So, yeah.
Anyone else relate to that? Yeah. What I'm hoping that you're all seeing is that this is a community issue. These issues are, yes, we're experiencing them on the individual level, and we're all experiencing them in our unique individual ways together. Like, we have these things, and this is why we have friends. This is why we have coaches. This is why we have therapists. This is why we have dance instructors that we're like flailing around on the floor. And this is why we go to tantric festivals and scream out our pleasure. Like, these are things that we do to feel embodied. Is there anyone else who wants to share before we move on? Yeah.
I got bounced off with technical issues, and I disembodied myself for I go into shame, like somehow it's my fault that technology failed on me, and I go into embarrassment, withdrawal, upset, all of that stuff. And so and I look at where I give up on my needs and become a martyr in times, and rather than just accept my humanality. And Lorna, when you said that about being attracted to somebody, I went, oh, me too. You know, I can look at all the places where I was super attracted to somebody and just gave up on myself, broke my word to myself, broke my agreements, didn't keep my boundaries, all because I wanted to be loved, and loved by them specifically, because I thought because I was so attracted, their love was better, more important than anything I could give myself. So
Feeling that. Contorting for their love. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul, we forgive you for having technical difficulties. I'm speaking for everyone, yes. Candace, are you raising your hand?
Yes. I am uncovering some layers and levels around self-abandonment, and with going blind recently, I had a lot of stories around not being able to take care of myself. And recently, with welcoming my mother into my world, really kind of gave up on myself and allowed a lot of things to happen. And in general, just feeling like, ooh, this is just a big piece for me, how I feel like I can't take care of myself. And so when someone, which at first I thought could be my mom, shows up in a way that says that they could actually help me in getting some of my basic needs met, I like forget about my emotional and spiritual needs. Yeah, I'm going through just like a huge awareness and awakening around this. And I'm really appreciating what you shared though, Trish, about, because I have this thing where I separate and say, oh, you know, because I'm blind, I'm having this, or because my trauma, whatever it is. But that everybody on some level and some degree deals with self-abandonment. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Candace.
I'm nodding my head too, Candace.
Is there anyone else here who finds who has found their caregiver terrifying? Just want to say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hands, at least 6 hands, who finds their caregiver terrifying. So that's a part of the piece around this childhood trauma, self-abandonment, codependency piece, is that we've learned to figure out how to get our needs met in whatever ways that we can. We've learned how to manipulate. We've learned how to fawn, fly, fight, flee. We've learned all these techniques to get our needs met before we're verbal, so pre-verbal, before we're even able to actually vocalize or understand our feelings. And those have probably carried out for many years. By a raise of hands as well, who still has child reactions? Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. Okay. Everyone in the room is raising their hand. Sometimes I will have a fucking meltdown and lay on the floor and just scream it out. Because I was taught that I couldn't have a fit. And if I had a fit, I'd be slapped for it. So now I'm just going to let myself have it. You know what I'm saying, Candace? Like we're in this together. I actually had a big piece that I want to talk to you privately about. I got that today. All right, so let's go into a little bit more. Okay, so we're all seeing the place where self-abandonment and codependency kind of meet. We know about the codependency triangle, how that plays out in the world. Let me just see if I can pull that up. Put it. Oh. I want to show it to you. Just give me 1 second. I had it all pulled up. One of the 15 tabs that I have open. is where? Well, okay. I will pull it up again. Thank you for your patience. Aha. Okay. So, as we step into living more securely, and I just want to remind everyone that it's not like it's going to happen overnight, that these are daily practices. You've been developing these neural pathways for your whole life. Like your whole life. You have the neural pathways to go direct towards this behavior, and it's okay. This is how human brains work. It's an inefficient machine. So just having the awareness that I'm a fearful avoidant and I'm going to create a whole bunch of chaos doesn't actually change it. What actually changes is me choosing daily patterns that I create self-trust. That's what creates change in my brain. That makes sense too, yeah? Thumbs up, nod. I don't want to bore you over here.
I need some more background. I need some more info about how to do that before I sign on.
All right, good. Well, okay. So the way that the brain works is a neural pathway is created by running a certain chemical through your brain. This is also how addiction works into your brain as well. So your brain is just like a little chemical mush bag over here, and then it's going to create these driveways or these pathways that go direct towards a chemical. So if we're born, and I'm going to use a crazy term. These come to my head immediately, and I'm so sorry. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. You're just going to have to hold with me here. We're going to talk about having a crack baby. We talked about this like a lot in the 80s, right? So if you're born and your mother was doing drugs, that the likelihood that you become, like you have an affinity towards drugs is not actually that far off, because your brain, your chemistry, your body, your genetics are actually craving that chemical, and will find it. So this is how people get into exercise or meditation. You start cycling thought patterns through the chemistry that you're creating in your brain, right? So when they say, think positive thoughts, like there is some science to that if you recycle and cycle and cycle positive thoughts in your brain, that you're going to start producing that chemical in your brain. So this is why, exercise works, because you're creating dopamine, you're creating epinephrine and oxytocin. And that's why we all love and touch and sex and massage, and we love these things on a physical level. If we don't have trauma, that's what we go for. It's like, oh, I want this stuff. And that's why addiction happens, is that we're moving towards feeling AKA normal, whatever that looks like. Again, we're going back to homeostasis all the time. So to create a new neural pathway, you have to, to repave those roads that you've created, you have to chip away at the roads that were already there. Does this make sense? Yeah. This is how systemic codependency is created in our culture. Is that we've been created for so long to have these like gender roles and relational roles. So here you have the codependency triangle, right? And this is what we're literally taught to behave in. We have friends like this, we have friends like this, we have relationships, family members, I don't know, my cat. And we start to play these games right here. So here's the codependent triangle. Perpetuates pain and suffering in relationships. And I would just like to say thank you, Emily and Scott, for this awesome graphic. And the thing about the codependency triangle that we don't actually really gather all the time is that we're generally in a place, in each of these places, and we recycle and cycle through them. So sometimes you're the victim, like, oh, I feel slighted and hurt, and I've made someone the perpetrator in my brain. But I want them to be the caretaker. So the perpetrator is now trying to caretake me, but they're still scary and violent. Or maybe because of my victimhood, I'm the perpetrator, that I'm manipulating the situation to make the other person bad. Has anyone been the mean girl where they've like talked shit about someone else? Like they felt hurt and victimized, and then they talk shit and have like hurt someone through their words? Yeah. Like that's the thing. And then when we caretake, when we come to a place of like, oh, this person needs my help so much, they're not whole, they can't source themselves, I have to save them. It becomes, again, we've already victimized them in our brains. Does this make sense? How we play out the system in our whole heads? A little feedback would be okay. Yeah, okay. So then for us, for us to get into the interdependent triangle. So what I mean by interdependent is where we learn how to self-source, we learn how to live in our bodies and our fuck yes, which is where we're gonna go into some action steps right now, is to get into this interdependent not co-triangle, but interdependent triangle is where we are meeting the other person in our wholeness. Because at this point, we do understand that relationships are not 50-50. They're 100-100. I'm giving all my whatever I got, and you're giving whatever you got. And sometimes it's going to be 20-80, and sometimes it's going to be 60-40. Sometimes it's going to be 20-80. Like, you know, you're going to have to move through, but that's 100% of what you got in the moment, even if you're triggered. Like, honey, I am so triggered right now, and I am going to melt down. What I need is some space, and what I can give you is reassurance. And so it really is starting to work with our humanity, with our humanness, not shame it for being an animal with consciousness. So we become a care offerer and a victor, a peaceful warrior, right? So we go from the victim of like, oh my gosh, poor me, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, I'm disempowered, to I'm empowered and I can also empower others from this place. I know myself enough to say, I love you and I need space. Or, wow, you're responding from a place of your own trigger and I love you there. Yes?
Space is my trigger word. So I'm just curious, because when somebody has told me they needed space in the past, that was just a prerequisite to the end of the relationship. So as I hear when somebody needs space, I just hear it as a precursor to I'm about to abandon and leave you, and I don't have the balls to say that, so I'm gonna use the space word as a cushion. So I'm just wondering how you deal with that one.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
Because Paul, I hear that, and I often was asking for space in my marriage, and we have a really huge house actually, and I really just needed space. Like I didn't want to break the marriage. I wanted to stay, but he was so triggered by me wanting space when I said that word. So however how I said it, you know, I needed to say it in a different way, I guess, but it seemed like he went ballistic and he wouldn't leave the bedroom. right? And so then, we have many bedrooms in this house and bathrooms and upstairs, downstairs. And I just wanted to sleep in my own room, but not that not that I wanted to end the marriage, but because of my, attachment style, I just really needed to get into my own head, my own nervous system, because I was just, taking in too much of him somewhere and the children, right? just to say that maybe we need to change that space word to something else.
I've got you. Can I offer one little slight reframe on a problem?
Sorry?
Can I offer a slight reframe?
Sure. Or you can, yeah.
And
I just want to give feedback. That's all.
oh, I love that, Noah. You said I was taking on too much of him, and I wonder how it would feel if you were actually giving too much of yourself.
Yeah, that's it. That was it. I was probably it, Trish.
So Paul, I'm sitting here while you said that, I was like, oh, space is the word. We're gonna go for, honey, I need an interval of time. And you know what? Actually, I also found is I need some headroom, which I actually thought was a really good thing. So here's the thing about asking for space. For all you loving avoidance, I know you love me. It totally triggers the shit out of me when you want to like not be around me. And are you willing to negotiate? Can we touch toes? You don't have to touch me elsewhere or even talk to me, but can you touch my pinky toe with your pinky toe and just breathe? You see, I often go for humor in places of deep friction, because I see that it's a place where it's so heavy and deep that I just need a breath. And that's where I get space, right? So Paul, I wonder if you can ask for a different word and for reassurance.
Well, yeah, because I'm in the middle of it right now, and like this is not some superficial thing that happened months ago. This is like this last week when we were talking about leaning in together, and then all of a sudden she says, well, I think I might need more space, which is sort of, the way I hear it, it's not a subtle thing. It's like, oh, I think I might need a divorce, or I'm thinking of having an affair with somebody else. Like, it's like, and she said, later she just goes, well, I said I was just thinking about it. It's like, fuck.
Ouch, Paul.
I'm just thinking of a divorce, or just thinking of an affair, or just anyway. How perfectly human. Here I am, love coach, and there's part of me that feels a blanket of shame wash over me because I'm supposed to have my stuff together. So, okay. Well, at least I've adjusted my collar. I'm fine now.
Paul, I see you in this place of vulnerability. And I also see you in this place of really wanting deep connection, woven, connected, safe connection.
Yeah, and then the last part I'll say, I'm saying this so that other people might relate. When I take it personally, I go, okay, you want space? I'll give you space. Now I want more space. So I go into space reaction. And then it ends up being the space wars.
Oh.
Nice, Paul. Does anyone else relate to that too?
My partner does that hard, and I it's so confusing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I try to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I try to.
You want to come in for a moment, Scott?
Yeah, okay. I was starting to write it. Well, thank you, Paul, for being so honest and courageous and very perfectly human. And just a reminder that the issue that causes you the pain isn't that she says space, it's your interpretation. And you actually even broke down beautifully your own interpretation, that it triggers you into a cascade, a domino effect, if you will, of ongoing perception. Oh, this is just the precursor that we're going to break up. Oh, this is just the lead to. So what we need to do is be able to share with our partners. I get triggered when I hear the word space, and I really need to understand, what does that actually really mean? You know, does it mean what Anna Prabha was saying, I actually just need to be in a different room? Or does it mean I don't know if I can continue to be in this relationship? And so, you know, just increase knowing what our vulnerability is, sharing it with our partner, and really getting clear on the interpretation of it all. So, and as you may all know, my number one commandment is, thou shalt not react to your interpretation of what another person says or does. Right. So I just had to toss that in there.
Scott, how do you create enough space between your that requires some really something, that moment of, oh, I'm reacting, because I'm 3 before I know what's happened to me. So yeah, but what do you suggest for that?
Well, ideally, there's the homeopathic part of it, and there's the premeditative part of it, and then there's the when we're in it part. Ideally, if we're in a close enough relationship with our partners or with friends, we can inform them, these are the things where I'm likely to lose it. I'm likely to go into being 3 years old when I experience this or see that. You know, for Paul, the word space triggers me. So if we can, we have to know ourselves first. We have to do the homework to know what our veils of past pain and our triggers are. Then step 2, we share it with other people that we are close to, and they hopefully remember that, and as acts of love are sensitive to it, right? So Paul's girlfriend tries to find a word other than space. She, you know, goes to Trish for Trish's alternative that she offered. Or if she uses that word, she says, and I just need to be in a different room. I just need a half an hour. I'm not breaking up with you. You know, I think Trish said it a couple of times, reassurance. You know, anytime we're setting a boundary, we should always lead with authentic reassurance that we care. I care about you. I'm not breaking up with you. I just need to be by myself for an hour. Right? Really learning to always offer authentic, has to be authentic, reassurance when we're setting a boundary, when we're saying no.
But all of that presupposes having a partner who is available for that. I'm behind all that in the sense that I choose emotionally unavailable men.
Well, we're going to work.
Fleet's good, then I'll shut right up.
I mean,
Because I find partner, they're just not available, just like my dad wasn't, right? So, yeah. So I can't get to that sophisticated level, which I feel ready for, but obviously I'm wrong.
But there are men out there that are, again, and that's why you're in Trish's class, is changing the patterning of who you're attracted to, trying to get your father to finally give you the love that he can't because he's gone, right? And I'll turn it back over to Trish to take us probably in that direction.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Who of the heterosexual female population here, or bisexual population here, who has picked unavailable men? Ooh! All right, there we go. Everyone.
6 for 6, 7 for 7.
Great. So, and yes, I mean, just in my own experience, I have totally picked unavailable men to work out the experience, to really trigger my shit so that I can actually access what an available man looks like, and to really turn back instead of blaming they're unavailable, to turn back the question and be like, where have I been unavailable? Where do I hit my intimacy threshold and not allow for the intimacy to even deepen? Ouch. Ouch.
Can I say something, Trish?
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be a problem clearly stated is a problem half solved. And one of the problems is my men that I pick are unavailable. And see, the problem with that problem is it makes it about the men versus I don't know how to bring availability out in the men I choose, which is brings it back to where do I have control, and is it my choices or am I shutting the men down in my life that, and they speak a different language, because the masculine speaks a different language, and it's very easy. I'm like a powerful, available man, and I'm also someone who can be really unavailable when it comes to, if it sounds like I'm being made bad, stupid, wrong, I have a listening switch and I am gone. It goes off and I'm gone, and I'm not going to sit here and listen to that, even though I may be sitting here. So I want to just like be a stand for the guys in the room also, that, and it's empowering to go, what is it that I'm doing that's shutting them down? And what do I need to do to take, make it a safe space for men to be available?
Exactly. That generally when we say things like those men are unavailable, we're not actually taking ownership of what we are doing and how we are unavailable. It's a projection. We often projection a lot of places because we're really afraid to be that vulnerable and intimate with ourselves even. Yes, Candace?
Yes. So I am coming to a place of really accepting how not really available I am for the relationships I really want and need. But I try not to judge myself there and still love myself. And so I'm feeling like I'm really glad we're having this conversation. I am like right in that place of like, ooh, okay, I'm pointing the finger and I'm saying this person isn't this person isn't that. Well, why am I not attracting these things that I want? And just recognizing I'm not bringing that,
Yeah.
it's like, how do I love myself there and still put myself, I don't know, I'm in a place of like, do I keep putting myself out there? Do I take myself out of the game?
Thank you for that. And thank you for your radical ownership. There are places where we're just not available. And you know what? That's the work, Candace, is where we can love ourselves there in the ownership of, without flagellating and shaming and blaming ourselves for that moment. And we're going to work on how to feel that in your body in just a moment. Yes, Anna Prabha?
What I'm really curious about and kind of blows my mind, and I've just come out of a couple of weeks of being in my family home after my stepfather passed, and found all these love letters on different levels, love letters from my father, my actual father to my mother, from the stepfather to my mother, and love letters from my boyfriend, high school, college man I was supposed to marry, and incredible love letters. And I've had these amazing relationships in my life where men were so available and so present, until I chose someone as a father for my child, my firstborn. Like, I chose an unavailable man to have a baby with. And since I've had children, somewhere this whole unavailability of men has come up. And I find that kind of blows my mind, basically. Yeah, it's painfully blows my mind. Yeah, painfully.
Well, we change. Like, so just to answer Sarah, is that yes, we do change. We can move towards places. So if let's say, as a fearful avoidant, which is anxious avoidant, right? That if I chose someone who is avoidant, that I would become more anxious. If I chose someone who is more anxious, that I might become more avoidant. I'd be feeling like the other way. Luckily, things can happen that we become more secure if we want to practice. And that's the willingness for that direction, right? And that's part of Paul's 3 keys.
Yeah, I'll tell you the amazing, I mean, the powerfulness with this work is definitely having that awareness. But then we have the DNA and the cellular makeup of things get triggered. And this whole, the way we attach, myself being dismissive, I think fearful, avoidant, wanting the relationship, not wanting and I think for me, just saying when I bring this up, the safety aspect of my children, I think maybe that's where what comes up is that my children, I felt I had to keep them safe, and that men weren't safe. Their fathers weren't safe, and I didn't have enough space to, and even who I chose for my first husband was not safe. So I just went back into that childhood wound, no matter how much work I'd done on myself, which I did a lot. The 10 years of definitely groups, Asia, India, meditation, super work on myself. And still the cellular makeup chose an alcoholic for the father who was abusive, who I had to separate from. The triggers, it's deep. It's deep work. And that's all I can say. It's deep work, and it just keeps on coming, keeps on coming, keeps on demanding exploration, curiosity, and, willing to look at it and willing to heal it. But it keeps on, for my core wound, just keeps on being triggered deeply. So that almost I can go into the same, feeling paralyzed, feeling I have to protect my children, just this whole existential crisis can happens for me.
Absolutely, Anna Prabha. There's something that Dawn and I, my colleague, talk about all the time, and that's a spiritual curriculum. And what I look at this idea of spiritual curriculum, which is the work that we're here to unraveling in the world, is that I've started to see it as a gemstone or a diamond with lots of facets, with lots of angles. And whenever I'm like, oh, I've completed this part of the facet, the spiritual curriculum, I start to keep looking at it, and I start turning it over, and it looks different, and it shimmers in the new light. And there's all these different angles that I can see it from. And so when it comes up, is it how we start to relate to it, right? How are we relating to it when it comes up? Are we still beating ourselves up for it? Or are we showing up in compassionate loving for our inner child, our inner wounds? Are we integrating it? Are we allowing it to talk to us? Are we feeling it? Or are we still doing the same thing our parents did to us? Are we shoving it off in the corner and continuing the cycle in our own brains, right? And that's a really interesting piece to look at there. So
I'd love to come in for a quick second, because Anna Prabha's situation she brought up is so obviously opens up all of our hearts. And Paul said something so brilliant that really fits in here. I just want to. So let's go back in time to Anna Prabha, and she's got the alcoholic father of her first child. And he's scared shitless because he doesn't know how to deal with having a kid. Mm-hmm. And she goes into Mama Bear, I got to protect my kid. Mm-hmm. And that then creates a greater split, because she's choosing the kid over the man who, the father, which is very Oedipal, it sets up the whole Oedipus Rex dynamic. And so it makes it harder for him to be at his best, because she knows more than he does because women just know more about how to take care of a baby than a man does. And now the man has lost his beloved to his own kid. And so I have compassion for everybody. I have compassion for Anna Prabha, but I also have compassion for that guy, because even, it's like, as Paul pointed out, of course, in her protecting the kid, it just reinforces his, I'm a fuck up. I'm an alcoholic. I can't deal with this, so I'm going to check out. And I bring that up because I've seen that dynamic in many of the couples that I've worked with, where when the children come, dynamics like that happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can I add just one thing, Anna Prabha? The way you said I chose an alcoholic, I'm going to make this up for you, but I sincerely doubt that you said, oh, alcoholic, I'm going to go for that. There was a lot of qualities that you chose that were beautiful qualities of this human being. And that's what you chose. And it just happened. That's like, I chose a car that's going to have a flat tire. Well, you didn't know it was going to have a flat tire. You didn't choose an alcoholic. You didn't look and go, oh, I'm going to choose a dysfunctional asshole. Or I added that part, but you know, it's like having compassion for yourself and going, I chose a beautiful man.
Thank
You
you so
know?
much, Paul and Scott, for both that feedback, because it's so true. I mean, my daughter from that marriage is the best. I mean, I cannot tell you how much I love my baby girl and my boy, but this daughter is beyond, you know, the best. I'd do everything over in a New York minute with her from the get-go. So I'm so grateful. And so thank you for saying that, for bringing that up, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, and the big healing is at some point going back to him, and you probably have already done it a bunch of times, but thanking him, you know, and saying, I'm sorry, I couldn't. I probably pulled away from you and saw you as the enemy. And that must have been really hard.
Yeah, he's passed now, actually. And I was looking for him because I did want to do that. And that didn't ever come to pass. Because I was grateful for him in the end for the leaving that he left, because I don't think we I couldn't have raised the daughter I did if he would have stayed in the picture, actually. So how everything was perfectly, it went, how it went was the way it was supposed to go. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, all of you, Scott and Paul. No problem. I'm gonna bring it back to the self-abandonment piece. Is that okay for everyone? Over here? Yeah. All right. So essentially, self-abandonment is when you reject or suppress, ignore parts of yourself in real time. So it's not like I'm sitting back on the couch eating popcorn thinking about the next time I'm going to abandon myself, or you know, there's times when I regret the time I abandoned myself because that's places where I've done it in the past and I'm like, oh, I could have done something different there, which is also not the most compassionate move. So again, it's in real time. So in other words, you have a need or desire that you want to meet, and often on the spot, and you make a decision not to meet it for whatever reason. And there's many reasons for that. We're all talking about the reasons why we do that. We get into fear, we get into loss, we get into our trigger, we get into our pattern. And I so want Lorna's love, or I so want Scott's love, or I want Anaprabha's love now that I'm willing to abandon the need for safety, or I'm willing to abandon my need for attention, or I'm willing to abandon my need for, you name it, for what? And I often write out, like, does anyone else do the sentence stems? Because this is a really good one too. I'm gonna type it in. I am willing to abandon my need for blank for your blank. And sometimes in relationships, I will, if I'm in a relationship or a friendship or something's going on, I will literally write that out. I'm willing to abandon my need for blank for your And what it shows me is that it's a place where I can show up for another person. It's a really powerful place to say, Anaprabha, I'm willing to abandon my need for safety for your attention. How powerful is that for Anaprabha to hear? She loves me. I know she loves me. So when she sees me in full vulnerability right there, we get to choose how to move forward together. That's in friendship. And if that person is really unwilling, I'm going to consider that as well. As a self-honoring choice, what's important for me? Okay, so we're going to keep moving. So in a self-abandoner's mind, the belief that their needs and desires cannot either be met or should not be met is really strong. Anyone else feel that way? Like, oh, I'm going to martyr this whole place right now. I've done it so many times. This belief leads to a continuous process of detachment. So as the self-abandoner repeatedly makes decisions to ignore, repress, condemn their own personal needs, they over time forget or lose the ability to identify their needs. Does this resonate? Because then if you again, it comes back to that secular thought process that like we're repeating, and we're creating the neural pathway. We're building those roads to we're automatically going there almost instantly because we've created the habit, habitual thinking. So this is the tough pattern that we're all here to look at, to break, to figure out how to integrate. And that can lead to many directions. I mean, I don't know about you, but I went down periods of like drug addiction and relational addiction and places where I just kept abandoning or dropping out of school for another person, for my partner. Like there's just like so many things that I've done. And I'm certain that there's places that you've done this as well, right? Has anyone else given up huge things in their life for another person? Ouch. Yeah. Ooh, I know we're all taking a deep breath here. So as sometimes, and I don't know if this resonates with you, but sometimes as we continue to abandon ourselves, our personal identities become hazy because we get into our pattern of people pleasing and neglecting our needs and neglecting ourselves, right? So I truly believe that at the core of self-abandonment arises from a lack of self-trust. It's the fundamental work towards transforming self-abandonment is self-trust and making commitments to yourself, to working on it, to committing to the love within you. So anything that involves self-care. And what I mean by self-care is going to therapy, doing your exercise, reading the self-help book or the things that I have like 6 books that I'm currently thumbing through, talking to people who you can trust that are emotionally safe. And I hope you put a pin in that one right there. Talking to the people who are emotionally safe for you, that they're not going to just fawn and say, yes, yes, you're totally right, but actually give you loving feedback, to hear you, to offer compassionate feedback, and to hold you accountable for what you want. So it also, anything that involves self-care, self-exploration, asserting yourself in the step in the right direction is also part of moving forward into your own self-love, right? Again, I'm just being honest. There is no quick and easy solution. And there's a whole community. There's communities based in helping you move forward. Love Coach Academy is one of them. We don't become self-abandoners from one decision. So there's a place of really forgiving ourselves and others in this process. So it won't change after just one experience. It changes eventually from a reservoir of experiences where you trusted yourself and things worked out. So with that in mind, you're going to default to self-honoring, which is all honoring, right? So the first step the first process I want to take you through is an opportunity to, again, drop into your body and close your eyes. And I invite you just to allow yourself to drop your shoulders, allow your cheeks to rest, your jaw to rest, your tongue to fall from the roof of your mouth. Take a nice deep breath, expanding your lungs completely. And I want you to recall a time or a place where you felt fully safe in your body, in the space where you were fully safe, that you felt trusting in yourself, in the moment, and the people around you. Yeah. Now, I want you to allow yourself to feel the sensation and put your hand on your body part or on the place in your body where you can feel that the most, where you recall that feeling and that imagery the most. And allow that feeling to wash over your body. To nourish each and every cell of your body and in your brain. And as you take another deep breath, give yourself an anchor, a place where you can recall this memory at any moment. Sometimes people put their thumb and their forefinger together. Sometimes they touch their face or their earlobe. But give yourself an anchor so that you can remember this again. You can recall this feeling of safety in your body. Yeah. So allowing that feeling again to wash over your body, you can connect and anchor this into your body anytime you want. This is your access point to the safety that you create within you. This is what safety feels like. So as you open your eyes, I invite you to either type it in or share it out loud.
I've never felt fully safe, so I can't relate to this meditation.
Totally feel that. I was watching you and I had that's wonder in my body. I want to help you get there to feeling safe in your body and in your life. Okay, Sarah?
Got tears running down my face because my last safe place hasn't been able to happen for a year because of COVID. So just feeling the sweetness of the safe space, but not being able to have it is bittersweet. Blessed to have the sweetness, but sad. It's I'm a scout leader, so just having the kids camping in nature, in my place where like I'm in control and everything's just great. Just the energy of youth, just the smell of the campfire, the trees, the kids playing in the river. It's just, oh, I miss it so much, and I'm glad to have that space inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to share their safe place? Yeah, Candace?
No, Ilani, did you want to say something? Sorry.
I actually think my mic is working. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Okay. I guess I just resonate with kind of not coming to a specific time in my life where I felt completely safe. And I don't know if that's because I haven't had them or I just am not aware at this moment of tapping into one particular time. But I think what my observation and learned gift from this is that I can create a sense of deep at any moment in time. So I really just kind of sat with myself here and gave myself compassion and love and safety. And so that can really be generated at any point in time. So thank you.
Candace?
Yeah. That was really tough. as much as I'm able to recall that and create like a fleeting sensation of safety inside, and I know that I've experienced that in my body and in different parts of the world, I am sitting with this big reality that, like, for the last 2 years, it's been very fleeting. Being blind is a whole new world in relationship to feeling safe
Yes.
in the world. And not being able to find an anchor point. And so I appreciate that you brought that in, and just like finding an anchor point would be really good.
Thank you, Candace. I'm feeling you so deeply. I love you so much. The point of that particular exercise is to give you an opportunity to acknowledge that there is the feelings of safe and unsafe. And this is how one can start to live in their fuck yes. Like, as you all like participate and see some of my writings or see some of the things that I'm my work in the world, is that if you can acknowledge or feel what your fuck yes feels like, then you can start to really acknowledge the places that you don't feel safe. And that is the key place. That's the place right before you react, right? You can. So does anyone understand that? When here's the feeling of safety, here's the feeling of connection. Like, that's the feeling that we're looking for. Now, when I feel oh my, I feel unsafe, we can slow down in that moment. That's where we can say, hey, I need a moment to breathe. I need some headroom or an interval of time for Paul and a toe touch, right? So a lot of my work is really finding embodiment and really honoring and trusting the body. Because as we get into, we've been living in an age of logic, and we've really pushed our intuition aside, right? If I do this, I can get this. That's the brain working. So the next little exercise that I want to take you through before we really get into the tool that I want to share is a place of really understanding your yes and no. It's one of my favorite tools. All right. So one of my favorite tools is, all right, so here's the game. I'm going to set up 4 situations, and I'm going to prompt you. In the first situation, I want you to say yes. In the second situation, I want you to say no. And I'm going to prompt you for this. In the third situation, I want you to say yes. In the fourth situation, I want you to say no. Regardless of whether you want it or not, right? So how it's going to work is, the first situation I'm going to say some random crazy things out in the world, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to say yes to things you don't want. I think we all actually understand this feeling. Who knows what the feeling of saying yes to something you don't want is? Yeah, I know. But here's the reason for this exact exercise is that we're going to start to find the distinction in our body, because our body is always talking to us. We just ignore it. So when you can really live in your fuck yes, in your truth, and when you want to make self-honoring choices, it's listening to that inner place. We know what safe feels like now. You have an access point. You remember what it feels like for most of us. So here's the feeling. So the first step, say yes to all of the things that I'm going to say to you. I'm offering you a dog poop sandwich. I know, I told you they're going to be so random. Say yes. Where does that
Yes.
yes? Can you feel that in your body? When you say yes, where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like?
Yuck.
Yucky in the tummy.
Yes. Oh, I'm offering you to chop your pinky finger off. I know these are just really random. This is how my brain works. Sorry. Do you have that
I
feeling?
need to go now.
You have 10 more minutes, Paul. You already outed yourself. So I know, again, they're humorous on purpose, right? To bring this slightly lighter. Saying yes to something that you want feels a very something that you don't want feels a very specific way. That's the distinction, right? And I invite you to write about this later in a journal or even like share it with me or one of us personally. So next step is to say no to something you don't want or something you do want. I'm going to say yes to something you don't want and no to something you do. I want to give each of you $1,000 right now. You have to say no. Oh, I know. I saw like, oh. Do you feel it? Do you feel it in your body? I would like to give you each a spa package of any services that you want. Say no. No. This is what self-abandonment feels like. This is what self-betrayal feels like. Yes. Now, I invite you to say no to something you don't want. We'll go back to that shit sandwich. I'm giving you a shit sandwich.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Oh. Look at that self-honoring choice. That feels good. The look on your face, even though it's a funny question, is significantly shifted. I want to take your house away. Yeah. I want to degrade you right now. Are you starting to see the distinction in your body? The feelings in your chest and your gut. And the last one is something like saying yes to something you do want. I want to give you that $1,000. I want to take you to Hawaii. Yeah. I want to send you your a article of clothing in your favorite fabric. I want to give you love the way that you want to be loved. Yeah. So that right there is the distinction. Like your body is literally always telling you what's true in your heart, right? Did that make sense to you? Do you understand how to utilize that tool? And the importance of slowing down before you make decisions. We're taught to be fast and we're taught to keep moving, and it's okay to say, hey, I need a breath. Can we touch pinkies while I calm down and really think about the self-honoring choice that I can make right now? How can I feel this in my body? Because I want to live in my fuck yes. I want to show up to you in our relationship in a fuck yes. Inspired yeses feel better for everyone than obligated yeses or lies of a no. Do you know what I mean? If you're saying yes to something that you don't want to do, you're going to create resentment in your relationships. You're going to continue to self-abandon yourself. And we're not here to do that anymore. This is what self-honoring and self-sourcing feels like. Saying yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. All right. For the sake of time, I'm just going to keep moving a little bit. So the important piece about self-abandonment and moving into a new space is really acknowledging your past hurt. Acknowledging what has happened in your childhood, what has happened throughout, how we've each created the system of that in our presence, in our present, and allowing yourself to just feel the grief, feel the feelings that come up, the anger. Because the most damaging thing that we can do is hold it in. Oh, I'm not allowed to feel angry about that anymore. No, I'm still fucking pissed. And I'm gonna be pissed till I'm not pissed anymore. And it's okay to be angry, but I'm not projecting it out. I'm not like calling my mom up and saying, yo, you know that time you told me the thing that you told me? No, because I can still be mad about something, but I don't have to take it to her. I love her and I feel compassion for her. She's doing her best. She was an 80s mom. She read that damn book. That one, you know the one. Thanks, Lorna, for bringing that one in. She read that book. She thought she was doing the best that she could. She was trying her hardest. Right? I have so much love for her. And I can still be angry that that was an experience that I had. So really allowing yourself to be upset or laugh about those things, or just really allowing those feelings to come up. If you want to pound on the floor and throw a fit and go to a rage room in the city and break shit, I invite you to do that. Because that's a place where we can start to really honor what's alive in us. Because once we start honoring our feelings and not making it about another person is the first step in self-trust. Honoring your feelings. Yeah. That's the first place we abandon ourselves to. So really allowing for the allowance and compassion are the full first steps to building self-trust. Because you cannot think your way out of a wound. You have to feel your way out of this. This is how you integrate it. This is how you find compassion for you, for yourself. And then we can ask ourselves, what story am I telling myself? What is my interpretation of this situation? Whoa. I've felt feelings. I've interpreted this from a young child imagery. Whoa. Is it still working? Can you give yourself compassion here for feeling those feelings and having those interpretations of reality? And then can you offer the people involved compassion too, for doing their best, for loving you the way that they had the capacity to love? Yeah. Can you find compassion for them? Cultivating. Because compassion for them is compassion for yourself, for their humanity. And taking a nice deep breath in. I know this is a big piece. Letting that integrate through your body. Let's talk about self-trust and creating promises and keeping promises to you. Self-trust is keeping you promises. Can you promise to allow yourself to feel the feelings, to be brave or courageous in your compassion for you? I'm going to give you a couple sentence stems that I've been working with. I'm gonna read them first, and then I'm gonna drop them into the chat box so you can copy and paste them. So let's explore what the positive benefits of how building greater self-esteem can impact your life and those around you. So you get to finish the sentence, and I'm going to let you just do it in your head for a few moments. But I invite you to write them down or create an audio journal about this. Is just allowing yourself to free write or free speak about it. And there's an important piece about being able to go back and listening to them eventually or reading them eventually. If I were 5% more accepting of myself when I make a mistake, finish the sentence. Again, if I were 5% more accepting of myself when I make a mistake, blank, what would happen? If I bring 5% more self-esteem to my most intimate relationships, blank, finish the sentence. When I honor my own strengths, blank. When I do the things that bring me a sense of accomplishment and joy, how does that impact you and others? When I love my weaknesses, blank. When I find compassion for my weaknesses, when I bring compassion. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the chat box now so you can take them, play with them later. Oh, here you go, Paul, before you go, here's a gift. So building self-trust, what is one action or activity for deeper self-care that you can commit to for the next just 2 days? What reward can you give yourself for accomplishing your goal? Of course, having someone to be accountable for. So self-care meaning something that you can, if you just choose these sentences to write about, that's one piece, right? What are, if you write out lists of ways that you can self-source your needs for compassion, your needs for love or touch or understanding, can you text those to people? Does this make sense? And I invite you to share verbally or write it down. What is something that you can commit to in the next 2 days, for the next 2 days? And who you're going to be accountable to. Yeah. I can commit to, I'm committing to resting as much as I possibly can in between so that my body is healthy and my mind is healthy and I can have communication, like better communication because my brain is sourced. I commit to being courageous in my loving compassion for others. And who I'm going to text about is my friend, Michelle. She'll definitely lovingly hold me accountable. Anybody else want to share? Yes.
I'll share. I'm going to explore ways to be self-compassionate at least 3 times a day. Or when something comes up, just try to remember to be compassionate with myself. And I'll be accountable to myself.
I invite you to also, you can Facebook message me when you were compassionate so I can celebrate with you.
Thank you, Trish.
Because that's a big piece of this new way, is that we get to celebrate when we get the reward, when we do something that's self-honoring. We get to celebrate those places. I'm committed to seeing friends in a safe way so that I can reinforce my sense of community, which is a deep desire for me, to reach out to a dear friend to make future plans. What's the most self-honoring choice I can make right now? That's the question that I often ask myself. It's literally here. I'll show you. I'll be very vulnerable, because I've created this thing for me to look at every day so that I have to look at it when I go to my computer every day. Are you ready? Oh, how does it work? How do I show just my regular screen? Hold on.
Do you know how to take a screenshot?
Oh, yes, I do. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull this back up. Finder window. Okay, so this is what I see every day to remind myself to make self-honoring choices. Hold on. Why is this being so weird? Oh, I'm in the wrong one. This is what I see every day. It's a picture of me that I feel really powerful, really in my body, really alive, and I invite you to create something like this for you, what works for you. I feel really in my fierce rawness, and I say, what is the most self-honoring choice that I can make right now? So that's reminding myself who I am and who I want to present in the world. Candace, it was a picture of me as I have a red line down my face in makeup, and I'm completely washed out in white, and I've got a black makeup across my face, like from one side of my hairline to the other, and I'm wearing a very crown, like a crown of flowers. It's very like my inner raw priestess. And I'm really asking myself in language, it's like, what is the most self-honoring choice I can make? I've set timers. I've set little like whispers to go off. I've heard of some people setting their ringtone as like things that you can hear. Things that you can hear constantly to remind yourself to be compassionate, or to make self-honoring choices, or to live in your fuck yes, like whatever the verbiage that you need to hear, it's for you. Okay. And the last little piece that I want to share with you, and this is the piece that's one of the pieces that's helped me most in my life of really honoring. So before you say yes to anything, here's a when you slow down, when someone asks you, when you slow down, ask yourself these questions. And I know they're kind of funny. For what reason am I making this decision? If the answer involves guilt, shame, fear, generally what we would consider negative emotions, you might be in abandonment mode. This is the one that I use. if I were the only person on this earth, would I still do blank? Would I still do it? So this removes other people's influence from your decision making and frees you up to determine how you actually feel and what is the most self-honoring. Did everyone understand that too? Okay, great. Again, there's no quick and easy solution. We don't become self-abandoners overnight. It's consistent work. So if you want to change this, and if you want to be able to step into your full sovereignty and your full fuck yes, and your full honoring of yourself, and being able to give yourself compassion, this is really a place of you choosing daily. And I'm not saying to just fully ignore all of the things and people in your life. Like they're children that need your attention and your time. There's relationships. But don't negotiate yourself out of getting your needs met. Right? We get to negotiate ourselves into meeting their needs and meeting our needs. But when we meet our own needs first is when we truly get to show up in 100% with them, in our 100% right now with them. Most self-honoring would be to talk to my boyfriend again and share what's going on for me. And my reward will be a massage, accountable to my friend Mindy. Thank you. That's so important. So I'd love to leave you with, I'm going to type those again in these sentences. I'll give them to you. But I would love for you to share what you're getting out of this call today. Anybody?
Oh.
Yeah.
So is that me? So I'm feeling more empowered to share what is going on with me vulnerably.
Mhm.
And feeling I already had this intention to do this today, but this, this convergence, this tribe here has just been more, empowering on a deeper, I think, cellular level. Getting curious and sharing in a way where I can be heard. Yeah. In a curious way, in a nonviolent way, in a, and the highest way to be kind of heard and accepted by the people I need to speak with.
Mm.
Yeah.
One of the places to share in that place is also from a place of not assuming the other person is going to respond the way that we expect them to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can tell them how you want them to respond. This is really vulnerable and I'm afraid to share because I'm afraid that you're going to. And I really want to share this. This is also a really good precursor to that. I just wanted to drop that in.
I love that. I love that because I think that'd be a very valuable thing to start out with, along with reassurance that I care. But yeah, I love what you just said. It's very important.
It's part of my setting.
Very pertinent to me, actually, in my experience.
Yeah, because the reason why you don't share. What is the reason we don't share? Because we're gonna
fear of abandonment, fear of being yelled at, fear of not doing it right, not doing it good enough. Yeah.
So when we're just really radically honest what's going on with ourselves, and you're like, hey, I don't want to tell you because I'm terrified that you're going to say, or whatever you're going to say, or you're going to yell at me, or you're going to slap me, or you're going to run away, or you're going to leave me. And I love you, and I want this. I want to be able to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
I need some compassion here. I don't want you to solve it, but I really just want to share with you because I think it's important for me to connect. It's part of my win-win-win situation. You win, I win, we all win, right? I'm going to set you up for success. Lorna?
Yeah, when people ask me how am I doing, I'm not going to say okay if I don't feel okay, which is most of the time. I'm going to do a grand experiment of telling the truth. which I was not trained to do, and none of us were probably.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore either. Thank God. Yay, Lorna! Woo! I just want
But I think it's only going to be with people that I feel like engaging with, because I don't want to engage with everybody necessarily. And when you say I'm depressed or whatever you say, that's not okay. It does invite engagement. But maybe I'll, as part of the experiment, maybe I'll do it with people I don't want to engage with and just see what happens. Yeah, it'd be a good experiment. I like thinking of things as an experiment somehow. I'm easier with them when I think of them that way.
Ooh, spiritual scientist over here.
Thanks, Trish.
Similar, Lorna, with the experiments.
Yeah. I get it that there are no mistakes. I got that a while ago. You can't really make a mistake. You just do what's the next step on your evolutionary path, and you do the best you can.
So true. Candace, do you want to go?
Yeah. Can you, I'm not able to get the questions out of here. Can you send those to me in a private message?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. All right. And I'm going to head out. This was really, really amazing. And one of the things that I'm trying to do for myself is just get out more. Yeah, so while the daylight is still up and I feel somewhat safe to navigate on my own, I am going to go do that. And I really appreciate what was brought here by everyone. So thank you.
I invite you before you go that when you do feel safe and elated in your body, to just out loud acknowledge it. I am safe. I am happy in my body. Because that drops your presence and you can just acknowledge it then, and then you can start to anchor that place.
Thank you.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Very well. Thank you. Bye, Katie.
I can share something quickly.
Mhm.
It's interesting what you just said, because I had an anxiety attack when I was with my occupational therapist the other day, and she gave me a new meditation, which is I am safe in my body, I am okay in my body, and it totally disrupted everything and brought me into a feeling of safety, because just being in the present and focusing on my body's state of being was enough to, center everything. And I think one thing that I'm really taking out of this is the feeling of, what it feels like to say no and what it feels like to say yes inside my body. And yeah, I think it's actually very hard for me to say no when I mean yes. So I don't know if I don't do it or if I just am so good at subverting my feeling, so I want to pay attention to that. And then I gotta find something for the self-care project. Yeah.
Text me.
Okay, I will. You can be my accountability partner.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll go. So for me, I love the idea of self-trust as a constant practice and I love the way that you describe it as far as the honoring my own choice. And because for me, there's this interesting place that I meet in life because I have trauma around being alone and feeling like I don't have connection. There's a weird, as any attachment issue that comes up, it becomes a push and pull. I need to run towards the thing or run away from the thing. It's like balance is difficult often in those places where we have past trauma. And so for me, that question that you posed, which I put in the chat box, so I need to scroll up, that's on your screen, of what's going to be the most self-honoring choice for me today. When I check in around like what is needed for me to feel fulfilled in regards to getting into community or pulling back or reading or doing something or what it looks like, for me, that's a place where I still have a lot of growth as far as slowing down, coming out of judgment and self-judgment, because there's a lot there, and really like trying to make the best choice and being willing, like Lorna was saying, I mean, I fucking love that. Like, it's just, we are that sense of curiosity. And I think we get that from compassionate communication. Like that sense of curiosity is always, it just makes life, it suspends the disbelief and it suspends judgment for a moment to say, and it's such a huge tool. Like curiosity is such a huge tool that we have at our disposal at any moment of like, what happens if I do this? Well, great. What I love the sense of curiosity for me in regards to how am I checking in moment to moment when it comes to engaging with others, coming back to self, what is truly needed in this moment, because I have such a judgment there. So thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
I'm speaking up because I feel like I should be speaking up and should be participating. Well, I know it's an odd thing. I don't have a lot to say today. I'm really taking this all in. I'm being an incredible present observer, and there's so much. And I just want to say, Trish, this has been amazing. You're doing such a beautiful job orchestrating this huge piece. Yeah, I'm just really grateful. I look forward to watching the recording again. This is just a massive piece that it feels a bit overwhelming. It feels exciting. It's just a lot. So I think I just wanted to speak up and say I'm here. I see you all. You're all so beautiful too. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Trish, what you've brought today. And I'm not sorry that I don't have more input or stories or things to kind of put off, but I am here. I am present. This has been big and deep. Thank you.
Thank you for showing up and for bravely stepping in to share that. This is big. All of this is big. And again, it's about incremental choices. It's like, there's a lot. And this is just the first step. This is like a 101. And luckily there's like there were 10 people on this call, right? 10 people that you can say, whoa. You can reach out to me and say, whoa, this thing came up. What do I do with it now? And again, it's remember when I said spiritual curriculum? You're looking at it and you're like, oh, you're like looking at this big, juicy, shiny ball of your work in the world. You're like, ooh, it's crystal's lovely. Ooh, I finally polished this side, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now I can, that's it. So if you can take it in incremental steps, that's why we start with just 2 days. If you can commit to yourself for 2 days, then the next week, and then the week after that. And then we build, our lives around being secure, around being sovereign. We build our friendships around that. We hold our people in our life accountable to that, as well as we do ourselves. It just starts to shift those little things, right? Thank you. To integration. Anybody else? Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say a big thank you, because the first workshop I did in the series, I couldn't sleep properly for 3 days after. I kept cycling my head going, why did you say this? You can't talk properly, you don't articulate, all the shit, just all the crappy voices. And then last week I shared that and was vulnerable, which I'm not normally, in that space, and it was fine, and I slept I slept fine. And then today I feel great. I've made like loads of notes. I found it really helpful. Yeah, I was going to say, today I saw something I'd never seen before. I live near the sea in England, and the sea had partially frozen with how cold it is. So like it was all frozen ice along the shore on the sand, but the waves were still coming in. And that's kind of how I'm feeling, like the water's coming through, and then there's all just the ice, but it's all fragmented, all different shapes, all you know, I'm trying to describe it, but I'm not good speaking, I'm better typing. But it was just incredible, just this field of ice, all fragmented, all broken and sparkling in the sun, and it was so cold, but the waves were still coming, they're still flowing, and the water was still making its way through. And it was just like, wow, that's how I feel at the start of my journey. Like, there's all this ice and cracked shit, but I'm gonna get through it bit by bit. And just thank you. I'm glad I've got a good community here, and I've picked a community outside of England, so it feels a bit safer. And then when I feel ready, hopefully I can meet you guys like face to face if you do retreats and things. I love coming to the States.
I so
Let's
appreciate
get COVID gone and come and let's hang.
I so appreciate that with you, Sarah. You know, you always, this feedback of like you thinking that you're not understood or you're not speaking clearly, and yet that was just like so clear, and on just really this somatic level you could feel when you're talking about the ice and the water breaking through. And that's, your journey, our journey, we're all on this journey of breaking through the ice, like, one of my things could be like the ice queen, looking like it's all together, right? And then knowing that water is also the strongest element. Water is the strongest element. It is going to wear it down. And with this intention of how we self-honor ourselves, just, really tuning into what that deeply means for each one of us, because it's different. Totally. It's just like, what is real for me? What is really self-honoring for me? What do I have to do to break through this ice queen, or to break through this like, fear, right? So I so appreciate you sharing that. And I understand you coming to the States. For me, India is my safe place, right? So thank you. And thanks, Trish, for, this beautiful class. Appreciate it.
My work.
Sarah comes from stiff upper lip land. I mean, we have some of that in America that we got from England, but boy, in England, you don't tell the truth about how you really feel. You got to buck up.
Yeah, get on with it. And
yeah,
get on with it and be polite, isn't it?
right.
Yeah.
I just
Screw
stopped,
that.
I just stopped doing that. Even when the grocery store clerk says, "How you doing?" I don't know. I'm hungry or upset. I'm upset today. Oh, I'm like, well, why would I lie? And they look at me like, it's not honoring for either you or I if I'm going to lie to you, someone I don't even know. They usually don't know what to do with that. But I'm not going to dishonor myself in that place. It's unnecessary.
I know we've gone over, and I just wanted to see if there would be a little bit of time to ask everybody's opinion on something, something I'm going through in my life. Is that, can I have the floor for a couple minutes?
I have time.
Okay, thank you. What I've really been dealing with.
One question.
Yeah.
You want me to stop the recording?
Sure. Thank you.
I'm just going to wrap this up right